Thanks again for letting me join you, Ellen Cookman. So this is a little bit about me, and I have the slides over here. So if I look this way, I'm still paying attention to you. But so I got my JD at Berkeley, and then my master's degree at Golden Gate. I love the Bay Area. I've been here about 20 years. And I love doing estate planning. I did litigation for 4 years. It was horrible. Fights are awful. So I only work with people who are getting along or who want to get along. A lot of times our battle is with the government, is with the public benefits programs, and how do we navigate that well? And how do we help when people are sick or upon their death? How do we make sure things get to the right place in generation wise? So I wanted to talk about a few different options that when your child turns 18, all of a sudden they're an adult. And even for typical 18-year-olds nowadays, it's kind of funny to call them adults, because if you know a lot of 18-year-olds, it still takes a little bit longer to cook nowadays, it seems, but they're an adult and they can make their own decisions. They can decide where they want to live and what they want to do for education, and who they want to spend time with. They get to make their own financial decisions. And a lot of our kids are not quite ready for that. I was talking with Marley before we started this, and I estimate that my son, who's on the spectrum, will probably leave the house at about age 25, but I don't know. It just takes him a bit longer to get to the milestones than our 8-year-old. So there's different options that are out there. And one of them is a limited conservatorship. And I think people jump to that immediately. When you hear, oh, you have a child with disability, you're going to conserve them, right? I don't think it's always the right decision. I think sometimes it can be a really good decision, but sometimes it's not the appropriate one. And so I want to talk about what it is, how to go through the process, and then how to know, is this the right choice for my child? If you don't conserve them, then they still have legal capacity, and they can enter into a power of attorney and an advanced healthcare directive, which, by the way, everybody on this call, anyone who's over 18 should have these two documents. So this allows somebody else to sign for you if you're sick or if you're traveling, right? So you can put certain parameters of when other people can sign. And then the last one is, it's a bit newer. It's called supported decision making. And I've been looking into this a little bit more, and I like it. And I think it can work in certain situations. But I don't think any of these are like a slam dunk. You really need to figure out what's appropriate for you, for your family. You might try out one method and decide, hey, that's not working for us. That's the life of a special needs mom. You try one thing, you think it's going to work so well, and it's like, oh, yeah, I don't think so. And then you go a different direction, and the fourth thing you try is maybe the one that works. Okay, so I want to dive right into conservatorships, and you may know a lot about it, you may not, but I find the more times we hear about things, it's like a new language. And I studied Japanese when I was younger. I lived in Japan for 3 years, and sometimes it would take me like 7 tries to hear the same word over and over for it to really stick. So I think the more we hear these things, the more it can make sense. So there's 3 main types of conservatorships out there. The first type is really the type that we usually hear about if somebody is old and has dementia, or like Britney Spears. I believe she was under a general conservatorship, where basically you get powers over everything. Then there's a limited conservatorship, and that's for individuals with developmental disabilities. And so that's what we're talking about tonight. There's 2 things that you can petition for. You can petition for the conservatorship over the person, which is really what's appropriate in most situations. That's to be able to make decisions about their residence and education and signing financial documents. Or you can petition, or you could do for both. If they have their own money, you can petition for conservatorship over the estate. Okay, so that would be their own stuff. Not if they have a special needs trust set up, then that's just managed by the trustee. But if they inherit money outright, or they've worked for a while and then they become disabled. You know, that can be a conservatorship over the estate, but usually it's not needed. And then the third conservatorship is for those with grave mental health challenges. It's called an LPS conservatorship, or sometimes it's called a 5150 because it's named after the 5150 hold. So basically, if somebody is a danger to themselves or society and they're in a lockdown facility, then you can get a conservatorship over them, but it's very, very, very difficult to initiate a conservatorship for somebody with mental health challenges. So if you have a child who has a dual diagnosis, which happens sometimes, right, with autism and a mental health challenge, then you should go for the limited, in my opinion, you know, you would go for the limited conservatorship and you would just focus on the developmental disability. Even if it's really the mental health challenge that's causing the problems, okay? Just because the mental health component is just so difficult to obtain. In comparison, the limited conservatorship is so much easier. Okay, so you can petition. So the idea behind a limited conservatorship is we want developmentally disabled individuals to be as independent as possible, to be able to retain as many powers as they can over their own autonomy. So we just choose which ones we really think we need powers over. And they divide them up into 7 different powers that you can see here, right? So to decide where they're living, to access their confidential records, to enter into contracts, to decide whether or not to get married, medical consent, decide on social and sexual relationships, and then decide about education, okay? So let me tell you that 5 out of these 7 powers are granted regularly, and 2 of them are hardly ever granted. And if you're in Santa Clara County, they most likely will not grant these powers. Any idea? Anybody want to speak up and say which ones they think are the 2 that they won't grant? Any stabs at it?
It's Marley, and maybe I'm cheating because I know a little bit, but I know the social and sexual relationship one is really hard to get.
That's
even
right.
If you have a kid who has Down syndrome or a lifelong, really developmental intellectual disability.
That's right, exactly. Yep, that one. So number 6, and then also number 4, deciding whether or not to get married. Those are the 2 decisions that at least the courts nowadays really tend to think that people should be able to make their own decisions with those. Okay. But you can petition for the other 5, and usually they're granted. Okay, so what does it look like to petition for a limited conservatorship? If you're doing an estate plan, you don't have to go through court. But if you're doing a conservatorship, it always goes through court, because basically you're taking away somebody's rights. You're saying, I don't think that you have the capacity to enter into your own contracts. So I'm going to take away that right, and I'm going to impose my ability to do that on your behalf. So it's a very strong power. And so the courts always want to make sure that you're making the right decision, even if you're the parent. Okay. You'd think, they'd have a different track for you if you're a parent, because you've been doing this for forever. And of course you're the right choice, but they still make you go through the entire vetting process. All right. So there's a lot of steps involved. And I believe that Parents Helping Parents does work with Santa Clara County to provide some free resources, but we also help with limited conservatorships. So first you have to prepare the pleading. So that's the initial paperwork. That includes the petition. It also includes, you have to fill out a confidential form where you say, my child doesn't owe me any money. I don't owe my child any money. I'm not a convicted felon. So just so that they know that you're the right choice. Okay. And you also provide contact information for all the other relatives and maybe some friends involved. You also get something called a capacity declaration from the child's doctor. So the doctor has to fill out a 3-page form kind of talking about the child's capacity and what they can do and what they can't do. Then you get a hearing date. And then other entities start piping in. Everybody wants to give their opinion. So the court investigator, who's appointed by the judge, will go in and interview. You will interview your child, maybe grandparents, and try to get a good picture for what's going on and whether this is really needed and whether this is the best choice. Okay. Then your child will also be appointed an attorney or a public defender. And then that person will interview your child. Now, all of this can be done over Zoom nowadays, which is really convenient. It didn't used to be that way, but now it can be done over Zoom. If your child doesn't really understand what's going on, they'll still try to talk with your child for a few minutes. And then maybe they'll see, oh, they're just answering yes to every question, right? So, but they have some experience with this. So they can usually suss out when your child really does understand what's going on and when they're just trying to be polite or make the person happy. So the attorney and the court investigator, they both prepare a report that goes to the court. And so it's telling the judge what they think. And then the regional center also prepares a report. So to get a limited conservatorship, your child must be a member of the regional center. There's no getting around it. If they're not a member of the regional center, then you would need to petition for a general conservatorship. Okay. Then at the hearing, the judge lets you know. Usually a few days before the hearing, they'll let you know if they have any problems. Otherwise, it's like a slam dunk. Then you get what's called letters of conservatorship. So that's really what you're trying to get. It's a one-page document that says that you have these powers over your child. And that's what you can give to the teacher at the IEP or to the doctor to be able to make medical decisions, or to the, to the public benefits office to let them know that you can talk on their behalf. Okay. Any questions so far? I like pausing and seeing if there's anything.
If anybody wants to write their question in so that we can maintain privacy, that's fine. Just put them in the chat and I'll ask them. I guess mine would be, so many people that are in my group are not, their young adults are not regional center clients. So is the process much different for a general conservatorship?
It's not that different. Some of the forms are a little bit different to fill out. I think that the argument, you might need to make a stronger argument, because there's no assumption that your child is so disabled that you would need to conserve them. Okay, so somebody's raising their hand, so go ahead.
Yeah, what about the decision to have children? Of the 7 things that you listed, is there something about, if the disabled individual wants to have children, is that one of the powers you go for, or is it included somewhere else, or what?
Well, that I would consider the social and sexual relationships.
Okay.
Because that's kind of the step you need to, have kids, unless somebody's adopting.
Well, actually, I was more concerned about just being able, whether the disabled person is able to safely raise children.
Of course. I mean, I think that's one of all of our fears, right? That we'll have to raise our grandkids and they'll be taken advantage of. Unfortunately, it is still very, very difficult to get that power. Now, you may be able to work with the doctor to get some, birth control or something for your child, but unfortunately, there's no mandatory sterilization, which fortunately for that, right? Yeah. But it's a difficult topic for sure. Okay, yes, another question. Go ahead.
My question is that if the young adult is cooperative, but you're concerned about their overall judgment, can they also have, rights to their, in terms of making the decision jointly together, for these things? I don't know. I guess sometimes
Yes. So there are other options that might be better in that situation, because really a limited conservatorship is taking away somebody else's ability to make decisions. And so that can be viewed as a positive thing by some children where they feel relieved that they're not going to mess up. It can be resented by other children that they feel like you don't believe in them enough to make their own good decisions. I think for my son, you know, where he is now in his trajectory, I don't think that we would conserve him. But I did want to start with, you know, the option, kind of the strongest option. So you can see kind of where that fits. And I do have a few more slides about it. And then we're going to talk about some other options that might be better in your situation.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
And let me just interject too. So anybody that joined us late, Ellen's going to speak until about 7:30, and then we will be taking questions. So let's keep going, and
Okay.
there'll be
Keep it
plenty of
going.
time for questions.
Great. All right, so these are the regional centers, just to let you know. If you are in Santa Clara County, you're part of San Andreas Regional County, Regional Center. And if you're in San Mateo County, you're part of Golden Gate Regional Center.
Ellen,
yes.
Can I just ask one quick question?
Mhm.
If one of our young adults is not part of the regional center system, but we think that they should be, do you
Yes.
ever help people with that?
I don't, but there definitely are some great people out there who can, and I'm happy to make some referrals. Mhm.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
sometimes people will initiate a conservatorship and then they say, oh, wait, but hold on, we're not a member of the regional center. And we kind of put the process on pause. So you can apply and try to become it, because this might be the first time you've really seen a need for regional center services. Okay, so there's a lot of things that can come up that we can talk about, and maybe we can talk about these in our breakout rooms of, you know, just different things to consider. But I do want to we have 5 minutes. So, so here are the alternatives, right? One of them is a durable power of attorney. So this is where your child lets you make decisions on their behalf. Okay, you can, you know, as I said, attend IEPs, access their bank accounts. So I said the principal, that's really the child. That's the person signing the document. Okay, there are some forms available online. Sometimes they don't have all of the powers that you might need, but it's a good place to start. It can be. One problem with powers of attorney is that they're voluntary. So your child can always revoke them. If your child disagrees with you, your child gets to trump your decision. All right. Sometimes banks don't really like these forms. They like their own form. They want your child to sign their form. Their lawyers will object if it's not a form that they're familiar with. And then sometimes, you know, one thought is that maybe it's not empowering your child to make wise decisions, because you're still saying, I want to make decisions on your behalf. And like somebody recently said, that's not really working together. Then you have a healthcare directive. So the power of attorney is really to make decisions for financial matters. This is to make decisions for healthcare matters, right? So you can access your child's medical records. Your child can spell out their decisions if they can understand these things, if they understand the concept of, you know, being in a coma, what do you want to happen, or if they don't have to answer those things. Again, they can revoke it. They can say, oh no, you know, I wanted my mom to participate in this, but I've decided I don't want that shot. Even if my mom says I should, I don't want it, or that surgery. Okay, so supported decision-making. I think that this is pretty cool. And it seems to be fairly recent as a development, as an alternative to limited conservatorships. There's an empowering aspect where you're really trying to get your child to understand, to understand these questions of, you know, what they feel like they're capable of and what team they want to put in place. The idea is to support the child, and we all need this, really. When you think about, how do I make a good decision? Well, usually, you know, if it's a legally related decision, I might ask my dad, or I might ask another friend who runs a business, and, you know, I get some advice. And this is putting some advisors around your child. You can be part of that team. Your child's doctor or therapist can be part of the team. So a trusted auntie or friend, you know, the care worker, they can all join together to help your child make good decisions. And it also reduces the stigma of rights being taken away. Now your child's like, hey, I can do this myself. It also encourages them to work within our community, to work with all the players in their lives. You think about all the different professionals you encounter, your child's able to do that. So how does it work? So the individual is kind of walked through, okay, what are some areas that you think you might need help with? And they get to list out those areas. And these are areas that some of us might need help with as well, right? Relationships, finances, hygiene. It could be as broad or as specific as you want. And then the child gets to choose, okay, who's going to be helping me out? Who do I trust with these things? And the child might choose somebody for the finances and somebody else for the personal hygiene issues, which makes sense, right? And then the supporters, they understand their role, and they commit to providing information and helping with this. And then they can actually sign an agreement together. So this is one agreement that I found online. And so I just kind of wanted to give it to you here just to see what it looks like, right? So this is where you'd put the child would put their own information here. And then these are some options of things that they need help making decisions on, okay? And these are the ways that they'd want information to be provided. And this is how they can express themselves. And there's other ways too. So if your child is nonverbal, maybe they use the light writer or other assistive devices. And then these are the people that they want involved. So all of their contact information, how do they want to assist them? And then there's several, this is for 3, but you can always add more. And then your child signs and dates. It can be notarized, doesn't have to be. And then the supporters, the people who are, and you could be one of the supporters, they all signed. And it's really a way to get buy-in for kids to really understand, hey, this is an option as well. And everybody to understand their role. I think Suzanne Francisco, I don't know if you've heard of her, but she has been really key in helping develop this. She has 3 children who are all developmentally disabled. And also a sister who was, and there's a presentation on the ARC of California website that really goes into a lot of detail, and I think it's terrific. So this is not a field that I totally specialize in, but I'm very happy to answer some questions, because I think this can be a very good option for those on the spectrum who understand these things, but we're worried that they're going to be taken advantage of. We're worried once they go into group housing that some girl's going to come around and convince my kid to marry him, and he doesn't know what's going on, right? I mean, these are valid worries, right? So how do we get people into their lives who can help our kids make good decisions, especially when they're just like, oh, mom, come on, or they might actively resist even a relationship with you, but you might be able to get better buy-in from others. Okay, so that's what I had to share. Just to let you know, I'm a team of, there's 8 of us. We're all virtual, and we love helping. Our focus areas are really estate planning and special needs planning. But this was when I was talking with Marley, we were really talking about what issues really come up when you have a young adult with high functioning autism. And so I really wanted to be able to share these things.